Welcome everyone to ARTWaves. I'm Kristine Fisher, your host of today's program, coming to you by way of 1623 Studios located in Gloucester, Massachusetts. Jacqueline Ganem DeFalco and I are co-hosts, so she'll be joining you next time. Jackie and I are very excited to be celebrating our 1-year anniversary of ARTWaves. Combined, we've interviewed up to 40 artists. Wow. We want to thank our listeners and of course our artists for your support of the program. And of course, we can't do it without our 2021 sponsors. They are Prince Insurance Agency, M.K. Fisher Visual Artists, the McDermott McCarthy team at Gibson Sotheby International Realty, Common Crow, and our partner C Arts in 1623 Studios. Also, a big note of thanks to our local musicians, Steve Lacey and Pat Berga, for their contribution of the music. We are blessed to live in a community that has been attracting creatives for generations. Our program truly celebrates this by focusing on accomplished artists and gaining insights into their journey and their work. So it pleases me to introduce contemporary artist Katelene "Kat" Masella. Kat serves on the board of the experimental group of the Rockport Art Association Museum. She's an active member of the National Association of Women Artists based out of New York City, the Rocky Neck Art Colony here in Gloucester, along with many other affiliations. Kat is also a recent finalist of the 8 Artist Show at the Attleboro Arts Museum. Her art has been featured in Art New England and Artscope magazines. Highly accomplished, I would say. Kat founded the Northeast Art Workshop Retreats, bringing to our area internationally and nationally acclaimed artists for week-long immersive workshops. In 2020, she earned a graduate certificate in visual arts from Harvard. Kat has been showing her work in juried exhibitions nationally and internationally and winning awards since 2016. Her studio is a climate-controlled yurt on her property in Manchester by the Sea, where she resides. You might know Kat for her encaustic figurative work. However, more recently, she's been playing with oils, describing them as wet and juicy. I love that. I had an opportunity to observe Kat doing a demo at Charles Fine Arts Gallery here in Gloucester, and I was so taken by her free-spirited approach. She just exudes joy when she is painting, and she does it so quickly and so effortlessly. She's totally fun to watch. That said, one of my key observations is that Kat paints with passion and a deep reverence for the frailty of life and the human condition. I'd like to read a quote in Kat's words. "When hard times come and the world is in disarray, I wonder how I can make a difference through art. I have chosen to depict feelings of peace and goodness, as we all eventually need these essentials in life. If I can provide even the slightest bit of wonder and joy through my paintings, then my mission is in part accomplished." Welcome, Kat.
Oh gosh, I'm going to cry now. Kristine, thank you. Thank you for the invitation and all you do for our community.
Such a pleasure to have you. And I have to acknowledge your fabulous backdrop there. We're getting a little glimpse into your yurt. I mean, wow, what a space. It's so generous. It's very large, isn't it?
It is. It's over 700 square feet.
Wow.
This is a virtual background.
Yes, I know, but
because the Wi-Fi is a little iffy.
Yes, we tried that.
Yeah. So this was actually pre-pandemic when I had classes. I was doing on the side here.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, you've been so active, Kat. One of the things that I'd love to start off with, you've been actively painting full-time since 2020, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Why don't we take a step back, and I'd love for you to unpack your journey a little bit.
Okay, so an art education is a dream, right? Or a luxury, really.
Yeah.
But a computer science degree afforded me an opportunity to live and work in London, which I like to think through osmosis and a lot of serendipity, that I was exposed to a lot of art and many excursions, weekend excursions to Amsterdam and Paris, and longer excursions to other cities in Europe. When that gig was up, moved to Boston and transferred jobs, took advantage of living steps away from the MFA.
Mm-hmm.
And there I met my hubby, soulmate, and we actually traveled Van Gogh's footsteps on our honeymoon.
All the way to
that. Yeah, all the way to Alver, the Van Gogh's final resting place. And as we were standing over Theo, his brother Theo, and Vincent graves, we just cried like babies, you know, over the needless tragedy. But we just loved the brotherly love, and Theo was by his side all, you know, his entire life. And poor Vincent only wanted to have a family and love. That's all he wanted. We settled in Cape Ann to start our own family, and we just loved the funkiness of the area and the history of all the late greats that walked this land and stomped the grounds, and a long list: Hopper, Homer, Whistler, Stu Davis, Milton Avery, don't forget his wife, Sarah Mitchell. The list goes on and on. But little did I know then how awesome the community is. And there honestly is not one artist here that I do not absolutely love and adore. And I have goosebumps right now. You know, we're all in the same boat together, you know, without a paddle. In 2012, when my youngest started full-time school, I went back to work and founded the Northeast Art Workshop Retreats, which did attract internationally known artists that came and generously shared their wisdom. And people came from all over, and it was for a love fest, a week-long love fest, open access, 24-hour studio, blood, sweat, and tears every day, lots of laughs, though, mostly laughs, and hard work. Every day was just a new experience, a new adventure, a new experiment as well. I had my own corner where I carve away time when I was not running around running the business. And so I could do small works, you know, on a part-time basis. And sometimes I would do demos on the fly, anyone that was curious of what I was up to. And workshops I did, you know, offsite in my yurt, also on the side. So even to this day, some of my best buddies are people that helped me run that organization. And they allowed me to be a mom, which is my main priority, and run the business and take courses, graduate courses towards the graduate certificate. So everything was thriving, and we were able to offer scholarships. Mid-January 2019, there was a shift where I had gone for a routine medical visit that went awry, and it basically shut off blood supply to this region of this cranial area. And so basically my brain was broken. But art is what saved me. It's what is healing, helping me heal. By September 2020, I was able to have energy to paint every day since. And what happened is I noticed that I see, and my husband noticed it, others have noticed, I see differently. I see more abstractly. I'm freer, free from inhibitions. I'm a bit more impulsive, which gets me in trouble a lot of times, and sometimes compulsive.
I love it, Kat. I love it. That is such a powerful story. My gosh. I'd love to shift and talk a little bit about your inspirations. You touched on Van Gogh. Do you have others that you'd like to address?
Oh gosh, Frida Kahlo is another hero of mine. She's, she was another one that suffered physically, more physically. And she also had to deal with her husband, Diego Rivera, who was a big artist, but was also sleeping with half of Mexico, the poor thing. Right. Had to deal with that. But she was she was just a badass. So, but also, a lot of people look at Van Gogh as their brushwork and color, but I really study how he organizes space. Mm-hmm. And Cézanne's another one that inspires me on the spatial arrangement of planes moving and shifting in and out, mm-hmm. forward and back, up and down. Rembrandt also, his sensitivity to the human condition, but I'm looking also at his spatial conditions. Mm-hmm. And they're really abstract to how he arranged things, in his representational work in an abstract way. Mm-hmm. So off the top of my head, there's so many.
Yeah, there's so many, but you've just listed so many terrific ones. I love your comments about space. That's great. That's very insightful. I'd love to ease in and talk more about your process. I had that chance to watch you live do a demo, and I was just so taken by your joyful approach. And we have a fabulous video that we're going to tee up here in a minute. And I'd love for you to make some comments. Give us a sense of what we're going to see here with your video.
Oh boy. So that video is funny because I just thought of doing that for you guys just before you needed it for the interview. So I was totally, winging it. But I do some things to get in the zone quicker. Mm-hmm. And I'll share some tips because everyone loves that ultimate zone,
Yes, right. That
nirvana, Yeah. So to get quicker into that zone, the quick route, well, Matisse trick is the monotypes. So mm-hmm. sometimes I'll do the monotypes. But I found for me, what works even faster is a double blind study where I hold a mirror. And I'm looking at the mirror at my subject and my surface. So when I'm drawing, just sketching, anything that's in that visual in the mirror, mm-hmm. if I'm going right with my arm, it feels like I'm going left. So it really flips the brain.
Yeah.
A monotype flips the brain, but this it's really trippy on your brain. And it instantly puts me in the zone. Yeah, so being relaxed helps, mm-hmm. The hammock swing, you'll see that at the beginning. Yeah. I use that to look at paintings from a distance and get another perspective, a minute or two in that hammock swing, or some down dogs to look at things upside down. Those are all things that work for me. Mm-hmm.
Is this a good moment for us to see the video?
Sure. Yeah.
Great.
Before and during a painting session, the hammock swing, it gives me new perspectives. Another thing for the neural pathways is to do some printmaking, which is a Matisse trick, who studied Cézanne, who in turn studied Van Gogh, and Van Gogh studied Rembrandt and the great Japanese printmakers. So today I'm grabbing this painting on the floor and it's getting reworked. I'm always challenging myself to grow and ask the questions, can I make this more thought-provoking, more feeling, more movement of volumes on different planes and shifting in space, but without losing unity? I know a work is done when I can answer these questions. So this painting is gonna get reworked or redone, 99% sure. But I know I'm learning and growing every day on many levels by doing this. Okay, I'm gonna go grab another painting to paint over.
So Kat, I have to say, I was mesmerized by the video. I loved the joy in your face as you zipped into your hammock. And I love how honestly quickly you work. You seem to work. Is that true that you work fairly quickly?
I do. it gets me into trouble because there are many layers and stories under all of those paintings.
Mhm.
And some of the layers underneath, I may have taken a few steps backwards by
Mhm.
going forwards, but I know that, you know, whether I scrape things down or paint over it, I know the next layer would not have happened without the first layer, without the layer that came before it.
Yeah.
And the next painting would not have happened without the painting that came before it. So it's the growth that I'm after, the growth that happens on every level.
Mhm.
And you'll see at the end of there's a clip where you'll see paintings all over the floor, all over the walls, nothing sacred. If I will grab anything in an impulse and take a squeegee to it and a scraper with no preconceived plan. And so all of those paintings have layers, thick, thin. Some are real thin layers, some are real thick. But they all have past stories. And
Oh, I definitely feel that from your work. Your work for me has a certain amount of emotional heft, I would say. And I think your figures are so intriguing. You and I talked, obviously, as we were talking about this interview, we talked a bit about your figures, but I'm going to ask you again, because I think it's really important for our listeners. Your figures are rather iconic in much of your work, right? And I just would love to know more about your intention or lack of intention.
well, I guess, you know, I'm deeply inspired by the human connectedness, the interconnectedness of all beings, the fragility of life, love, random acts of kindness. You know, there's enough malice and menace in the world that I try to focus on the goodness and finding something, the good moments. We don't need to travel overseas to have an adventure.
Yes.
We have it, you know, we can have it right in our backyard in everyday moments, and just observing everyday moments, and whether it's a complete stranger or a loved one, I feel like it's all an experience that's buried in us somewhere. And that's what comes out, is in the mind's eye, and what comes out in the process through that tapping into the zone and the subconscious.
Yeah. Well, I just, it's so powerful for me. Now, listen, you are on fire. You've got so much momentum right now. I'd love to talk a bit about your shows. You've got several that are coming up. Give us some insight.
Sure.
And we have some wonderful visuals that we're going to just drop in to go with.
Okay, so the first visual, the NAWA New York show. So all the shows I enter are juried shows, and they're mostly online still now, but they're starting to open up in person, which is great, because you really have to see the art in person, I think.
Oh, I think so too. Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. Yeah.
So the first one's called Sisterhood, and that one's more of a transparent. I was playing with transparencies, which I really enjoy working with. So there's a lot of transparent layers in that one. And I'd say there's about a handful of NAWA shows in New York and Boston that are juried every year that I do. The next image is the Attleboro Art Museum that you mentioned. It's they call it the Elite 8, and it was 165 artists from their annual show that they scrubbed down to 8 artists. And we each will have 8 fairly good size paintings, as well as 20 smaller works.
Wow.
That'll run for a month in the summer, August.
Well, congratulations. That's a big deal.
I'm excited.
Well, the Elite 8.
I've met the other artists virtually. That's great. It's going to be a great show. Okay, so next up, the Rockport Art Association and Museum. They are celebrating their 100th anniversary this year, and they're doing a Then and Now show, which is exciting. they hired some Boston curators to select images from the past in their archives and asked us to use one of these pieces as inspiration for a new piece.
Mhm.
So I chose this one, Marguerite Pearson, who was born in the 19th century. And I was inspired by her calm portrayals of figures in her life in a wheelchair. She painted in a wheelchair for most of her life. The underpainting that I did, I wanted to pay homage to Marguerite. The underpainting is very modern and abstract, and I could hear Marguerite. She suffered enough in her life. I didn't want to, wanted to rest in peace. So I tamed it down. So it's more fitting, I think, for the venue. And but who knows? She might have been saying, "Go, girl, go for it." Who's literal? Next up is the next image, Rocky Neck. So I'm so grateful. They offered me a solo show, a 3-month solo show. So I'm their second quarter show. And that starts, I think, today. So I'm so grateful for that. There's 12 pieces in that show.
Mm.
And later on in the year, this fall, we have a Rocky Neck show entitled 2020 Visions, which is a select group of 6 of us, including yourself and other fine artists. It's going to be a really fun show and kind of reflecting on 2020.
Mm-hmm.
The last image is just, I have a few pieces in a Boston show. There are more shows, but that's, yeah.
Kat, you're prolific. You really are. You're prolific. You have so much going on. Dare I ask you what's next? What's next is continuing to create all this great art.
Well, it's nice to, I like to feel like I'm contributing to the family through my art. And I know that it's good for my brain. And I know that the growth affects not only me, but others around me. But what I really like to figure out is how my art can serve or have a more impact on the greater good. Mm-hmm. So I need to figure that out. But next on my to-do list, juried shows are all well and good, but I'd like to approach galleries. Mm-hmm. Since now art is not, for the first time in my life, it's not a side job anymore. Mm-hmm. It's real. It's my full-time thing I can do for the rest of my days.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love it. I love it. So, my dear, share with us your URL.
Sure. Masella.com. Cat with a K.
Great. Well, Kat, thank you so much. Your story is so uplifting. And when I think of what you've been through and how you've overcome adversity, and here you are out the other end of it, just, taking names. What can I say?
Gosh,
You're
thank
fierce.
you.
You're absolutely fierce.
Oh, thank you for the opportunity and all you do. And I just feel great love and support from this wonderful community, and I'm really grateful.
Well, I'm grateful that we've had this opportunity to talk today. So thank you so very much. I want to thank again our sponsors. Without you, the show will not go on. And for our listeners, you can access this recording at 1623 Studios' social media platform on their website, which also includes Channel 12. I'm Kristine Fisher. Thanks so much for joining me today. We've been talking to Kat Masella, and I will look forward to talking to you next time.